Y'all, today I'm very excited. We are going to talk with a good friend of mine, Brian Sielaff. That Brian is the founder and the CEO of a dynamic civil engineering firm based out of Boise, Idaho. And they are growing rapidly. But what I really enjoy in this episode is Brian gives a lot of insights in regards to how to lead a group of people and how to have a philosophy around how you interact with customers, with your team members. It's an overall life philosophy that interweaves how you do business, but how you do life as well, and how he carries that forward in his organization and ultimately has built a really, really wonderful, attractive company culture that makes employees want to come work with them, that's allowed them to grow as successfully as they have grown. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive in with Brian and for you all to get some insights here that you can pour back into your business. But quick shout out that in this episode, we recorded it under our old podcast name called Accelerating Lower Middle Market Value. And we did not find that to be a very fun, exciting, attractive name to get our audience to listen in. I'll have limited time in the day. And quite honestly, that did sound a little bit boring, Accelerating Lower Middle Market Value, that we thought it would be a little bit more fun. That, personally, I'm a coffee head, that I love coffee. And so we decided to change the name to Brewing Business with Brady. But throughout this episode, you're going to find references to that old podcast title. Never mind that. The insights are just as true as ever, though, of what you're going to gain from this podcast episode. So we hope you enjoy. Thanks. Thank you for joining us on the show today, Brian.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mason. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Brian, we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So could you start by sharing the story behind founding Tamarack Grove and what motivated you to start the company? That we'd like to hear the origin story, that what motivated you to go out and start something on your own.
Yeah. So Bonnie, my wife, and I, she's not an engineer. I am. I had the privilege of working at two full-time positions before we started Tamarack Grove. But in those two opportunities, I was taught a lot of just interface between clients, interface between your coworker, interface between your team and your community. And really, through those 13, 14 years of me working at other places, I just had the ability to be a sponge and just take it all in. If you would have asked me in those probably first 13 years of would I want to start my own business, I probably would have said no. But we really just got to a point where in our life with family and balance, and, we just woke up one day and just kind of asked the question of like, gosh, and really being a person of faith, it was just really God tapping me on the shoulder and asking me, who are you working for and why? And, I was working 10, 12 hours a day and growing an office for someone else. And I just came home one day and I said, I can't do this anymore. It wasn't that I wanted to just go out and create my own business. I just wanted to have a different why. And I think in doing that, in those 13, 14 years, I had the privilege of meeting lots of people and really understanding the importance of relationships. And so Bonnie and I just really walked in faith. We had three boys, and she was 7 months pregnant with our fourth child, our daughter.
Wow.
And the world would tell you, what the heck are you thinking?
Yeah.
And we went in full time in 2007. So as you know, back in 7, life was good. But then 2008 happened. But it was all part of the plan and all by design. So we did that. And just really wanted to make a difference of just pouring into people. I had learned a lot along the way of how not to treat people, how certain situations where I was treated, and just kind of that thought in the back of your mind was always of like, someday if I ever had my own business, this is how I would try to run it.
Yep.
And so really we just went all in with that theory and that thought process. We went in to the deep end of the pool, and because of all the relationships that I had created course of those 13, 14 years. I'll never forget it. I had one client that called me in this phase and just said, hey, Brian, at the end of the day, we don't care what the name of the company is in the title block and the side of the drawings. At the end of the day, we want to work with you because of the relationship and what I bring to the table with just everything that goes into a client experience. And so that really spearheaded us into like, hey, let's do this. So that's really what we did. We dove in, and within 3 months, we had to hire two more people. And like I said, 2007, we grew going into '08, probably five of us, and then of course
Awesome.
'08 happened. But uh, it was fun to kind of go in there. But that was really our why, just to try to do something different and focus really more on people and the opportunity that we could do with having a business.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'm interested. We'll expand upon it more, but I think for our audience that, I think so many people are looking for, like what's the number one tactic they can have in order to grow their business or, how to create a valuable business. But you've mentioned it so much, two keywords there, relationships and people. And, there's not much new under the sun, but I mean, even in the business I run in CFO services or, professional services, accounting, et cetera, I just tell people that, yeah, if they want to start a business, the best way to do it, just have great customer service and care about your clients. Like just be very proactive in your communication and care about the relationship more than the work itself. And that's not to say you shouldn't care about the work. You should, work diligently. Your yes should be your yes, et cetera. But just care immensely about the relationship. And so to folks listening that definitely encouraged from what Brian said that there's nothing new under the sun. It's just about, going all in on the things that really differentiate yourself. And it sounds like, Brian, you've definitely focused a lot on relationships. And so, yeah, expand upon that for us. You have a very relationship driven philosophy. Can you explain how this philosophy shapes your company's culture and client interactions? Like, tangibly, what do you mean by relationship driven when your team is operating and interacting with clients?
Yeah. Well, specific to that, starting with my team, it's all about your people. I care deeply about my people. And I heard many years ago of your ministry is what you make of it. And so Bonnie and I really approached Tamarack Grove with, we have the opportunity to come in every day, be surrounded with an amazing group of people. It's taken us a while to kind of really get to this point of like right person, right seat.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's really defining your why. And my why is people. I focus on building up people, not businesses. And I feel like the rest of that works out when you pour into your people. I love and care deeply for my people. It's my life. I hate to use the cliche of Tamarack Grove as Bonnie and I's second family, but it really is. We are a team, and the people that I surround myself with in Bonnie is really what then allows Bonnie and I to be in our lane and do what we do. So
Yep.
I follow a rule too that, it's always hire the person, not the position. I think there are a lot of companies out there that just focus on, hey, we have a position open, let's just go out, do whatever, fill it. At some of my previous companies, the seat would still be warm and they would just throw someone else in the seat,
Yep.
specific to focusing on the role and the position. So it's really hire the person, not the position. But
Yep.
and then on the whole relationship thing, I mean, whether you're a CFO, whether you're doing structural engineering, whether you're selling insurance, I mean, we are gifted with the talent that God has given us. But I tell everyone that even comes into my business with an interview or whatever, is at the end of the day, we're doing structural engineering, but it is not the first thing we focus on every day when we come into the office. It's the opportunity we have to pour into those around us, to build up our clients, to just engage, create a community, all those things that tie back into my culture. And yes, at the end of the day, we get to stamp and sign some drawings and give a client some documents to go get a building permit with. But that's not the first thing we walk in the door every day to focus on.
Yep.
And so I think I've really just instilled that in my people and our culture of really focusing on the bigger element of what our ministry is with just our team, with our clients, with our community, with our third party vendors, everything that pours into making Tamarack Grove Engineering successful at the end of the day. It's really engaging in those relationships and being intentional with them.
Yep. Absolutely. That I some call outs there that it's interesting. I mean, even you've brought up your faith, and we're both faith oriented people, and our Christian faith is very important to us. And at the same time, even if you look at secular teachings, they talk a lot about like vision, mission, values, and your vision's your why, your mission's how you do it. And what I've learned a lot, or what I've heard from some of these teachings, is your why really shouldn't change. Your how can change. And so to your point that, yeah, today you're an engineering firm, but by all means that you could sell widgets tomorrow, but their why doesn't change. The people and the relationships aspect of what you do doesn't sound like that's ever going to change for Brian and what you're trying to lead and what you're trying to do. And so it's great to hear that. And I agree with you that I try to approach hiring the same way. And I was very grateful to have started my corporate career. It sounds like, you started from a story in which you didn't have that why and where you were working and wanted to establish it. And I was really grateful to work for a company that had a great why. And I got to learn and be mentored and to be a predecessor or a protege under that and then try to go do my own thing. Right. But what I learned a lot, and I would encourage our audience that definitely hire people for the cultural values fit. And my metric was if there's 60 to 70% on the way there at technical side, you can train the rest of it. Hire on the cultural fit. If they're strong on that and they're 60 to 70% on the technical, there's enough training out there, and if they are a motivated person, they're gonna figure it out. And so yeah,
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, my culture is based on number one, my purpose, my why. Why am I doing this? I said that I like to build up people, not businesses. So I focus on my people. The second thing of that is my values. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show of just my six values of relationships, servant leadership, respect, integrity, joy, and go beyond. In defining our core values, then that gets me to the third element of my people. Who do I want to hire and bring into our fold based on our values that we set. And
yep,
then really the fourth is just branding. I think we're big on branding with everything we get to do with our touch points with social media, our website, things like this.
yep,
And then I think the fifth is intentionality for me. A lot of companies will do things, but then perhaps the intentionality falls by the wayside, or you don't focus on things, or in some cases things are written down, but you're not actually playing those out. So intentionality in everything we do has to be key. And then number six for me, the last is just ministry. It's something that I focus on again with the opportunity and the platform that I've been gifted with.
yep. Awesome. So I'd love to tangibly, talk through this, that especially for our audience, that that relationship driven mentality, how does it play out? Because, and no offense, Brian, in any of this, but relationship driven, those, I think some people can feel like, those are vague or kind of gray words. Like, what does relationship driven really mean? And I guess I'm interested to understand for our audience, like, how does it play out in, business development, trying to get a new client or trying to serve existing clients? Like, exactly what does relationship driven really play out and tangibly mean? Like, how does your team, what does that tangibly look like on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly basis with new clients, existing clients? Can you elaborate there for us?
Yeah. I think to me, it comes back to what is your motive? And you and I just talking, you and I, when we first met, I cared about learning more about you as a person, your family, your kids, like where you live. And I try to take that and teach that to everyone in my office.
Yep.
And I've had some people come in where they're just thinking, like in the marketing mindset of, oh, we got to go out and sell structural engineering services. It's like, no. Again, what I said earlier is at the end of the day, that's what we do, but we're not seeking out to do that. I have many examples of clients that I just got to know them over a course of 5 years.
Yep.
And then someday rolls around with, hey, like if an opportunity rolled up, let's work together. That's
Yep.
awesome. But my intentions and what your motive is to just really connect with people. And
Yep.
to me, that embodies the whole definition of a relationship. What are you expecting to get out of that? I think, again, that goes back to your motive of like, at the end of the day, I want to meet someone. I want to learn more about them. I want to honestly just know who they are, their story,
Yep.
their background. They're sending them a Christmas card every year because that's what it's about.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if you get to engage or work or do things, that's the added bonus.
Yep.
But it's really connecting with people. And we just really embody that through our whole culture. And that tagline of being relationship driven is that's what we teach our staff to be and act. And everything else will work out itself in the end.
Yep. It reminds me, I'm part of a roundtable group, and at one point in time, we had a member that he was a farmer in, I forget exactly where in Canada, but he was a farmer and ran some farm operations and had different other, businesses and operations going on. But he had just lost his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law passed away, and he told the story of how, I guess it's just a small little farm town where people had access to houses, et cetera. But he showed up, one day, the funeral hadn't quite passed, but his CPA that he hadn't told any of this to, his CPA showed up with a plate of, hand baked cookies, just to
Mm-hmm.
give to him and his family, and just it was like to him that it didn't matter whether the tax strategy was absolutely perfect or something like that, or that, this and this and that. But he just said that just awed him, that that will be his CPA for life, and those types of things. And
But that's the
it,
intentionality. Like I said, that's intentionality. It takes that thought process to be like that, and it's
yep,
sincere.
yep. So I guess I am interested personally. What does that look like? So, I mean, you've talked a lot about the intentionality and especially wanting to understand the person and to build a personal relationship with the person. How does that translate actually into the delivery of your work? That I think, and I'm saying this that even in my personal experience, like I've had vendors try to sell me on stuff, and that they've been very relational. That I felt like I could get along with them great. Like they were the people that I would invite to the weekend barbecue and invite over to my girls' birthday events because they would have kids too, and it felt like we could share life together. But then sometimes my experience of actually working with them is, yeah, and granted they were in charge of sales, right? But the operational aspect of, say, their delivery of the product, services, et cetera, there was just a lot left to be desired, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you carry that over from wanting to have a personal relationship to doing great work and great delivery in what you're doing, and having that be relationship,
Yeah.
and caring and driven in that too?
At the end of the day, it has to work. You have
Yep.
to deliver. Whatever business we're in, we can have a great relationship, but if my customer service is horrible, or I'm missing deadlines, or I'm over promising, or the quality of work is horrible, or we submit stuff and every time we just get tons of building department comments back and it's just the schedule is prolonged, like at the end of the day, I wouldn't expect anyone to hire me. And so this is a constant communication in my office of the client experience is everything.
Yep.
And we never take anything for granted. To your point of just even working with some clients, I tell all my staff never take the attitude of, oh, we'll just always get their work. Oh, that will always be their number one structural. You know how it works. As many times that we're working with a client for many years, there's 5, 6 other companies out there knocking on their door of like, hey,
Yep.
try us. Hey, we're licensed everywhere. Hey, we can do this. So you always have to have the intentionality of just making sure that you're delivering. Because, and I've had some clients along the way where I get that call and they're like, hey, gosh, I love you, Brian, but man, I just haven't had great experience working with, team XYZ. I try to walk away from those situations of what do we learn? How do
Yep.
we get to this point? What do we need to make better and do better?
Yep.
How do we make sure this doesn't repeat itself? But I think that's just life of how you take those lessons in life and you try to learn from them and get better.
Yep. Absolutely.
It has to work at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it does. That, yeah, we can be very relational, and that's wonderful. But yeah, yes has to be a yes, right, and no has
Mhm.
to be a no. And yeah,
Humility plays into that too, because if you don't have humility and you just think, oh, what's their problem, or like we're the best out there, like that's
yep,
certainly not a framework of being humble. You always have
yep,
to come to the table with anything in life of how do I get better? How can we get
yep.
better?
I think the reality too, like, I mean, yeah, you can get to know the person, but your work is a ministry too, right? That I know you and I can, talk a lot about this because of our faith, but it's one of the most disappointing things that I can ever, experience is, yeah, when a Christian doesn't follow through on what they say that they're going to do. Their yes is their yes, or their no is
And
their
I've
no.
been
Or
burnt before. I've been
yeah,
burnt by people that have the fish on their business card, and
yep,
so it's not. It's just yeah, I get it
yep,
100%.
yep. So, kind of expanding, I mean, I'm sure that the relationship driven philosophy is going to weave into, some of these next questions or your answers related to these, but I'd love to understand, you talked about that people are an incredibly important part of what you do, your why, that you build people. You don't build a business, you build people. And so, our next question revolves around that how do you build a great team, to get you from point A to point B? And for the audience to understand, before we even hit the record button, Brian and I were actually talking about, there's team members that help get you from point A to B, but they're not the right team members to get you to C, right? To point C after B. And so I'd love to understand, Brian, that in your experience, what roles have been critical to your growth today? And at what stage in your business did you determine that you needed them, and why?
A few years back, I heard the word strategic, and honestly, prior to probably 2018, I didn't really know what that meant. We have always been very successful at growing Tamarack Grove organically, But around 18, 19, I met certain people, I met certain companies, kind of really plugged myself more into the industry as a whole of just AEC, started going to conferences. And in that, just really learned of just the notion of strategic hires. Um, for many years, as we were growing the business, wearing a lot of hats, I got to a certain point where I came into the business every day and I was like, I just cannot operate at this speed anymore.
Yep.
I walk in the doors at 7:30, I'm in fifth gear, and when I go home at night, I'm in fifth gear. And just what it was doing to my mind, physicality, spiritual, everything, my mindset, I was just exhausted. But the timing of meeting certain people in my life really came on this notion of making strategic hires of like, what if I created a director of operations for our business? We're chugging along at 25, 28 people now. There's a lot of moving parts. Everything's important. But at the end of the day, if I don't get to this stack of documents on my desk, like the business suffers. So
Yep.
I've got to get someone into this. That same thing was huge when I created my, just marketing and business development team. Um, I am so passionate about marketing and business development. It's still a hat that I enjoy today, but I, again, got to a certain point in our business, like I need to have someone that is in our business day in and day out, focusing on this. And
Yep.
so I created the whole director of business development, and it's literally changed the game of our business. But I
Awesome.
think just realizing as you're growing a company of like you can only do so much, and some people might think of it as well. That's overhead. We don't use that word at all in our business. It's not overhead. It's a strategic position,
Yep.
and you really have to step back as a business owner and say, hey, how do I get better? What would make us better as a team? So strategic hires, just even strategic business decisions of what we're doing, being just even a growth mindset business. We've all heard the phrase, if you're not growing, you're dying. But just being focused on growing. And again, I think you have to just as a person in any role, just challenge yourself of like, I want to get better. I come in
Yep.
every day of like, what can I learn from my staff, from my clients, from my vendors? Like, how does that make me better as a leader? And so I think you just have to have that mindset. I think at the end of the day, too, you and I talked about this at the beginning of you always have to do what's best for the business. And from bringing in the right person, the right seat, they might be great from A to B, but then strategically, we're in that hat of like, okay, guys, we got to shift.
Yep.
We are now going from B to C as a company. We are growing other offices. We are doing whatever that may look like. We're taking on more clients, but what what do we have to do to do what's best for the business? Knowing that mindset. Now we're going from B to C. Internal staff decisions, internal relationships with clients. Maybe there's some clients that are just flat bogging us down, and they were a great client for 10 years, but they're just like high maintenance now, and we're just they're taking too much of our time. And so making key decisions like that, even of like just your client base, but just all those things, I think you have to come back and be real with understanding what it takes to run a business, and sometimes obviously stepping out of being in the business and always wearing that hat of working on the business. But it all comes back to just how and what is best for your business.
Yep. Awesome. So, I mean, you've definitely, I mean, you're the visionary of this business, right? And the idea of, you're creating the vision of where this goes, what this becomes, that you have a big focus on people, relationships. And it sounds like as you've had this evolution in building your team, that you were doing many of the things that a visionary did did at first, that you were doing a bit of delivery while trying to grow the thing. And then you were able to figure out how to get less of the delivery off your plate, go hire a director of operations, and you could continue to focus on more business development. And then as the business needed, somebody to be solely accountable for that, then you offloaded that, and you're continuing to move and migrate yourself as a visionary into where you have these operators, delivering and responsible and accountable for these specific areas. And so I'm interested to understand, what are you focusing on now? That you talked a little bit about what happened historically, but like, what are you focusing on now as you continue to build your team and grow? How do you plan to continue to elevate yourself in that visionary role?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. I think again, the last 5, 6 years, I've really been fortunate to understand what lane I should be in. And there's many things we've implemented as a company, but I felt like at times there were 4, 5, 6 of us in leadership that were I kind of projected as an image of driving down a 6-lane freeway, and we were all just cutting each other off and cutting into lanes, and like we were still moving the company forward, but we were just all over the place. There was no clear direction or definition of the boundaries that we should be in. I think with some of the things we've implemented, we've really gotten better of staying in our lane. And I was challenged probably a couple years ago by Doug, the other owner, of just really embracing the role of CEO.
Yep.
I've never been a person of titles. We all work hard in our lane and do what we got to do. But I think with just focusing on the right person in the right seat, getting the right team in place, the right leadership, where then I can 100% count on people to get stuff done that I need them to as I delegate. It's really allowed me to then take that position of CEO with all the and I hate to call them high level, but they are high level decisions, thoughts. We're moving our office this year. That was I kind of just focused on coming out of the gates in January of like, what is the next step for us here in Boise, Idaho? We're growing, sending a couple people out to grow other offices. So I've really enjoyed having the confidence in the team around me, knowing that they're getting their position done, and
Yep.
helping us move forward as a company, which then confidently I can stay in my lane and focus on some of these other initiatives that we need to do as a company. And so I think that's been really huge for us in the last couple of years.
Some of the things I heard there, it's like you're focusing on building these, offices and building up these offices in regional areas, et cetera. And, the idea that you're thinking through the strategy of that and trying to get the people to do that, right? Like as a visionary that you're not, going and getting the clients yourself anymore and trying to go bid on the new client job, that instead it's a continued focus of like getting the right people in terms of growth, getting them regionally in the right area, getting the right people involved and setting up the systems and structures for them to be successful. Is
Hmm.
that right?
It's so huge, and it's really empowering people. Give them the keys. Trust is huge for me. I tend to be more that like you come in, you've earned my trust out of the get go, and it's for you to kind of maybe burn that to where then I don't have the trust, versus hey, I don't trust this person. You got to come in and prove yourself, and then you'll gain my trust.
Yep.
But I think it's just empowering people, and you're just at the end of the day. I mean, I heard just even a quote yesterday that good leaders try to get people around them to think that they're great or they're good.
Yep.
Great leaders get people around them to just focus on themselves to where they're great. And I just really trait that mentality of trying to focus on that. But I think you just have to always keep those kind of things in mind.
Yep. Awesome. You kind of brought it up a bit. I think, a lot of businesses in the lower middle market, business value is, a measure of like, what are your margins in your business and the multiple that you can put on those margins, right? And, how risky is your business? And one of the risk factors is how much of the business is dependent upon the owner themselves.
Hmm.
That, do they have significant influence in the major client relationships? Are they actually the top salesperson? Those types of things. So if, anything happened to that business, if that owner, drop dead the next day or God forbid, something like that. But, does the business just deteriorate as a result of that happening? And you kind of spoke about it. So, you hired a head of business development and marketing. But I'd love to understand more because I think there's a challenge, especially in professional service firms, that there's a relationship between owner and client, that's a lot of where the relationship lies. But how do you do business development so that the relationship with the client is a relationship with Tamarack Grove instead of a relationship with
Hmm.
Brian, or even a particular team member, if that matter? It's really a relationship with your company, your brand.
Yeah, another great question. I saw many examples of mentors or people here in the Treasure Valley that and maybe they didn't know any better, but they took the attitude of this is my business, these are my clients, all that interface is between me and them. The very first company I worked for, that's really what drove me to understand. I'm like, I really like marketing and talking to people, but I didn't have those keys. I
Yep.
just literally had to sit in the corner and do my job. And others had all the relationship with the clients. Out of the gates, it was me and Bonnie and I. That was a concern of us as we grew the business. Of like, hey, Tamarack Grove Engineering is Brian and Sielaff. And
Yep.
some people will say if you died tomorrow, or I like to think if you won the lottery or something like that, and that
Yeah.
changed your focus. But I really have worked hard the last probably 10 years of our business to make Tamarack Grove Engineering Tamarack Grove Engineering.
Yep.
We are a body of 42 individuals that are moving our company, growing our company. I always just took the people in my office with me on marketing trips, business development trips, and
Awesome.
I would plug them in because I wanted my client to know, like, at the end of the day, you're working with a Doug. At the end of the
Yep.
day, you're working with a Brendan. At the end of the day, you're working with a Trevor. This is who you're going to be talking to day in and day out. You're not talking to me. I mean, I value our relationship, but you two are in the trenches. And
Yep.
so, and then the opportunity to be one on one with that individual on a trip, which is huge. I could pour into that person. And then I could show them how business development worked. Because at the end of the day, I want to give them the keys. I want to teach them on, I want you and I need you to do this yourself to continue in your lane as you grow your team or you grow your role within the company.
Yep.
And I was shocked at how many people didn't do that, or they just took that attitude of my relationships, my clients, my business. And it really came back where I saw a lot of failures in that approach of more often than not, people are like, well, I wanted those keys. You never gave them to me. I'm going to go across the street and start my own business. So I've really been focused on giving really everyone in my office the keys of relationships. But with where we've gone with our branding on social media, with everything that we're doing, teaching so many of those around me the keys, I really feel like we're at a great point now where Tamarack Grove is Tamarack Grove. And
Yep.
we are all very key in the lane that we're in with the hats that we have to wear and the titles, if you want to use that. But we are a team. And I push that in my business from day one with everyone that comes in. As we win as a team, we lose as a team.
Yep.
Many companies you'll see out there kind of just use the overhead or the O word of like, hey, like, that's an overhead position. But it's like, if my marketing business development team isn't doing what they're doing, we fail.
Yep.
If our front end administrative assistant isn't answering the phone and greeting our clients on a daily basis, we fail. If my finance team isn't following up with AR and sending out invoices, like, we fail.
Yep.
If I don't do what I need to be doing every day of focusing on the business, wearing that visionary hat, trying to propel the company forward, we fail. And so
Yep.
I'm shocked at how many business owners and companies out there don't share that attitude and just kind of try to just not show their cards. And I
Yep.
think that's a failure in running a business.
Yep. Our next question, and I appreciate it. You kind of led into it a little bit. Your brand is a significant brand in the marketplace, and that you've invested a lot, in the marketing and business development that,
Mhm.
like you said, the past 10 years have been building Tamarack Grove, not building Brian, or
Mhm.
Brian and Bonnie, that it's very much so building Tamarack Grove. And your marketing team leader, that he just won an award for his team success in marketing a professional service firm like yours that saw a lot of the posts on social media, and so congrats to him. But a lot of businesses struggle in their marketing efforts, or they don't have much marketing department. Like in our CFO business, I just introduced a outside marketing agency to a client of ours that is a 60-year-old business that has literally zero social media presence, hasn't updated their website in 10 years, type of thing, and is one they're wondering, hey, why am I not growing, what.
Why is this not?
Yeah, yeah, why is my business not growing? And I said, this is just gonna be a quick win to put some new revenue on the board. If you get one client as a result of this is ROI is there. But why do you invest so much in marketing? That you've already given some answers, but yeah, I would love for you to elaborate on that further.
I, at the end of the day, love marketing and business development. I'm an engineer at the end of the day, but even in the lane I'm in right now as CEO, like, I still do a great portion of business development. We've plugged ourselves a lot into SMPS over the last couple of years and have just learned a lot through that organization. But yeah, Duncan has been an amazing hire. I share the story when I brought him in first day. I said, "Hey, what do you know about the AEC business?" And he was like, "Zero." And I was like, "Can you spell AEC?" And he said, "Yeah, I could probably do that." So literally, that was day one in Duncan and I's conversation. But he was very moldable, teachable, coachable, and he has taken this role and embraced it going on over 5 years now. But yeah, he did win the Emerging Leader of the Year award through SMPS
Awesome.
National, which has been amazing for him. But I'm passionate about marketing BD. We sit down and Duncan and I talk daily. I am shocked at again how many companies across there, like, a lot of times the C suites can be like on the sixth floor and everyone else is down on the lower floors, and the communication gap there is just crazy with how not often they talk. And a lot of marketing individuals out there share of, like, they just really feel like they're on an island. But they've
Yep.
been hired by this company, They've been given tasks to go out and market and BD and, try to get, award that next big contract. But there's such a disconnect between the two. And getting back to the whole relationship thing, love business development. I love going out and meeting people. It's a challenge for me to go to a conference and just walk into a room with just opportunity. And again, just with the intentions there of like, who can I meet here? Who can I start a new relationship with? And really just leaving every situation with that attitude and going into it with that same attitude. But so Duncan and I talk daily. Like he has a team now. We are a company of just at 40. And you could sit there and say, hey, for a company our size, more often than not, the marketing BD person is still the CEO. They
Yep.
may or may not have a strategic position for that. We not only have that position, but Doug and I went into this year of putting two more people around Duncan. So his team is a total team of three. This
Awesome.
summer they had an intern, so technically through the summer it was 3.5. But with what I've seen them accomplish, with giving them the keys, just running our business, we chase clients. We don't chase projects,
Yep.
but we chase clients with the whole intention of building a relationship. But I'm passionate about it, and Duncan would share that same mentality. But him and I have just worked, shoulder to shoulder through these 5 years, and I've just loved to see what's come out of that. But
Yep.
you have to have that alignment between your CEO, C-suites, and your marketing BD team. And if not, I don't understand why you would not.
Couple points there. I love that phrase. We chase clients, we don't chase projects. And so that just drives back to the relationship driven philosophy, or it goes back to that. So for our audience, that is a wonderful quote there, that we chase clients, not projects. And that intention that, relationships take years sometimes, right? That it can take a long time, but even, in our business and Brady CFO, that, we realize that, hey, that one phone call, if you have, a follow up once a quarter, it will likely turn into something at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know when, but you just have to, you have to invest in that. And that,
Yep.
it's not just about, okay, I'm going to go seek this little opportunity and try to go bag this. Like, surround yourself with the people you want to work with and the types of clients you want to work with, and just invest. And it may not be the right time now, but the right time will come up.
Yep.
And so what I love about, your marketing, I feel like some companies get this wrong. Either they have a non-existent marketing department overall, like nothing is there. Or I grew up in, or a lot of my corporate career started in fresh produce. And what I would see, you'd see these fresh produce firms where they'd have, somebody in marketing, usually it'd be a gal in marketing that was just doing social media posts. But you've linked marketing and business development together. And that's the thing, is like a lot of businesses, they'll have somebody in that role doing posting, but the concern is it's like, but what new business is that driving? That, we're spending dollars on the salary here, the team here, potentially they're working with outside agencies to do a lot of the graphic design, et cetera, or to help manage the website, because even a marketing person can't do it all, right? That they can't be a jack of all trades and good at particular things. And so, I've loved how you've linked marketing and business development, but how do you determine the success of your marketing, that like, hey, it's doing what it is meant to do, that all of your efforts in social media, your branding, any other initiatives that you're doing, that it is driving results of what you're looking for and the investment that is worth it? How do you determine that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that quite honestly, Mason has been very organic through this process. But the last couple of years, in terms of KPIs and metrics, we've tried to just put boundaries in place and set goals for Duncan and his team. We have brought in a whole CRM thing maybe 2 years ago as part of our ERP system, Uninet. But we, again, try to get better every year, with him now having, to your point of his team being three. Ben is kind of overseeing most of the marketing now with all the social media stuff. And then it's Vic and Duncan that are in that business development seat. We have kind of gone into this year of like, what should that look like with key metrics and things that, hey, this is what I'm striving for.
Yep.
We've always had goals on how much new business. Like we went into this year and we have the total goal as a company. And out of that, it's broken down into two things. How much existing clients can we strive to get better at and get more market share from that particular client on just building upon the existing relationships we already have.
Yep.
And then the second part of that is just what do we give Duncan and Vic with how much new business, how much new relationships, new clients that we haven't worked with before that they bring in. So we set those goals. We do EOS, you know that, but we sit around the table every week. And part of the scorecard for Duncan is how many touch points he's had for clients, how many new opportunities he's put in each week with what him and Vic are chasing and doing on top of what the other team leaders are doing. But we're monitoring all that, and we are on track to have our best year ever again for Tamarack Grove. I mean, since 2011, every year has been our best year. But again, to what we talked about before, we just try to take new things every year and implement it. But and we try to get better with just talking to others that have gone before us. I'm excited for just even our new tax advisor CPA of just and getting to know David over the years. His company has so much geared around KPIs and metrics for not only team leaders but on the marketing BD side. And so again, it's just always trying to get better and learn from others that have gone before you and try to implement that in your business with what works.
Awesome. Yeah, I love, what you talked about, the KPI metrics and scorecards, that for our audience, if you, and I've heard of examples of this where I've worked, with some clients where all they began doing, while I think it's important to have a KPI and a goal metric, that sometimes just measuring activity creates a result too, a very, promising result just once you start measuring it. But I appreciate what you said, that it's like Brian and his team, Duncan and his team have specific touch points that they're supposed to be making on a weekly basis, and they have a scorecard related around that. And it's so many people kind of wonder, like, hey, or companies, I should say, and owners, why am I not, producing better sales? What's happening? It's like, well, you have to have a set amount of actions that you and your team are committed to every day, and you're following through and doing those if you want to achieve the results. That just like working out, right? That if you want to lose weight, you got to go to the gym and you got to do these certain things every day. And if you do those consistently, consistency is the key, but eventually the results show up. You got to do something, right? And you have to be consistent with it. And accountability is a wonderful thing of a scorecard too.
I was going to say, it all revolves around accountability.
Yep.
You have to have a clear definition of what that accountability looks like, but like whether that be goals, boundaries, metrics, KPIs, like it all comes back to, hey, this is what we've set and this is what you're accountable for.
Yep.
And in our structure, I mean, there's certain things where I think this has been great. If certain people don't do their certain parts from accountability, sometimes that can keep me from doing what I need to do on my accountability chart and my list. And so it's just great that we have kind of implemented these new things this year. And but yeah, everyone has to have a goal and metrics versus just like, hey, just come in today and work hard and we'll try it again tomorrow. But we're in a good place right now. I've been really blessed for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we always like to wrap up the podcast, Brian, with one final question to our guest. And that is, what's one piece of advice you give to CEOs in the lower middle market who are looking to accelerate their company's growth and create lasting value? Obviously, you've given a lot here, but what's the one key takeaway you want our audience to know and to understand?
I would end by saying you have to be humble and you have to surround yourself with great people. Awesome. That's not only your internal team, it's amazing vendors. It's amazing, just people outside of your four walls. But I think that's my biggest takeaway or input to those that are maybe sitting there like, gosh, how does this work? But just having a humble mentality mindset, and then just how do you learn from others as well?
Yep. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you, Brian. That really appreciate having you on the show. This was great, and glad to know about you and more of your business. That I'm sure we'll have many more conversations to come. But just so grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you, Mason, for having me on there. I'm excited for who you are, what you're doing, and I really, really appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to this most recent episode of Accelerating Lower Middle Market Value. We hope that you found actionable insights that you can implement today to accelerate your business value. Wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor, Brady CFO. Brady CFO is a team of CFO advisors that help business owners in the lower middle market build the business of their dreams via comprehensive growth strategies and financing that growth. If you'd like to learn more about Brady CFO advisory services, visit bradycfo.com. Thanks, everybody. Until next time.